That's how you do it, just like being in the army. You developed pretty fast now. Means and outs and things.
I'm still learning. That's right.
Oh,
I get it afterwards.
right. Yes, right. Yeah. Yeah, we're ready. Ready on the firing line.
With who? Yeah. Mike and Greg, you guys all set? Charlie's on the 8th. Do a big calendar and get going. You all set? Welcome to the November 16th Smithfield Planning Board session. In case of an emergency, there are two main exits out of the chambers. The first is to the left side of the stage, up the stairs, through the doorway, and down the stairway out the back side of the town hall. The second is out of the back of the chambers to the exit doorway, through the stairway, out the front of the town hall. The men's facilities are through the back of the chambers, past the stairway, around the corner on the right. The ladies' facilities are through the back door of the chamber, straight up the stairs and to the left. Please do not use the elevator in times of emergency. We'll begin with a review of the minutes from the October 19th, 2023 meeting. Does anybody have any changes, additions, or comments?
Chairman, make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All not in favor? The ayes have it. Regular agenda, beginning with old business. DRG Acres, ID number 2309. Informational meeting continued from October 19th, 2023.
I have reviewed the minutes from the previous meeting, and I've also reviewed the video from that meeting. So I feel comfortable enough going up to speed with it.
Agreed. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Sam Hemingway. I'm an engineer with Garofalo & Associates, doing business out of Providence. Our attorney tonight couldn't make it, but I'm here representing the applicant, who is also here, as well as the other team members. So to refresh the board's memory, we came here last month with a master plan that was somewhat different than the original pre-application discussions that we had. Initially, we had projected coming in with a rezone on this property to downzone it to 1 acre lots. After reviewing with staff and looking more at the specific requirements of the ordinance, we felt like a better path forward was simply to come in with relief requests without a change in zone, so that the lots are coming in with irregularly shaped lots, but complying to the area requirements of the underlying zone. So 2 acre lots proposed. The lots would be primarily meeting the meat of the ordinances as it relates to buildable area and setbacks and access and the like. But as you can see, if you probably remember, To do that, we were required to get limited frontage, so less than the required frontage, but each lot does have fronting access on an existing street, that street being Douglas Pike. So we had a slightly modified configuration when we were here last. There were two issues that were brought up during the TRC and also discussed by this board. Those specifically were a cross access from the most remote lot across a second lot from the shared access driveway. So we have reconfigured the lots so that each lot gets frontage off the driveway, now direct frontage off that shared roadway. Again, it's proposed as a private roadway at 20-foot road width. We also reconfigured the lot to eliminate it at a sort of an awkward cul-de-sac type shape. So we introduced a hammerhead type turnaround. We obtained the emergency vehicle template from the fire department and provided a documentation that that vehicle does have adequate room to turn around. So that was basically, it boils down to the changes on the plan that were submitted are two. So it's the elimination of the driveway easement and then the adding of a hammerhead. We have also proposed on this, as indicated, slightly shaded on that plan, conservation areas. So it's a little more clear on the intent of all the configuration of the upland area and why this configuration we think works well with this specific piece of property. So I think at the 10,000 foot level, that's a change. I think it was something that we talked about with this board. He asked if there was an opportunity for us to look at combining more closely and addressing those specific points, which we feel like we have. Love to get the board's feedback, and obviously we're here hoping for a positive both a approval of the master plan, but also a recommendation regarding the variance specific to the frontage and the lot. There's also an interior angle waiver required by this board. I don't know if that's a separate action, but that is and has always been part of the request.
Thank you. One.
I would do it. I don't think it's like, it's just, yes.
Yeah, I would do it. Let me ask.
Yeah, Mr. Shadone, on this matter, do we reopen the public hearing? We had a public hearing the last time we were here.
I don't think
It was continued?
Yeah.
So we reopen? Okay.
Yep.
We're going to reopen the public hearing at 6:08. If anyone would like to be heard, please come forward. State your name and address, please. With no one responded, the public hearing is now closed at 6:09.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the engineer a question?
Of course.
Am I correct to, do I remember correctly, is that actually the fire department was suggesting the hammerhead as well, right?
Yes, it was brought up at the TRC initially. That issue was brought up. Yeah. Effectively, it was brought up under the largest vehicle has changed in the town, and to confirm that the template worked on the original configuration, right, and to provide a diagram. Yeah. And during that same meeting, it was discussed that it might be an option to do a turnaround. It seemed like it might be a better configuration.
So they should have no issue with this plan?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of board members? Any discussion of the board members?
So what variances are you looking for? Is it just the frontage that you need?
So it's a frontage and a lot width. Is the zoning relief that would be required, with the waivers that would also be required by the planning board include interior angle and the private road with width less than the public road standard, so less than the full width. There is also a request that we've outlined, which is a designation of the rear setback for irregularly shaped lots. So there's the language in the ordinance establishes a rear setback not along a property line where lots are irregularly shaped, triangular or otherwise, to the extent that that requires a determination, we just like concurrence that direction has been established.
Any other questions of board members? Any discussion? Board members? Do we have anyone with a motion?
Move to approve the submission as requested, together with a recommendation to the town council with regard to the zoning change, recommendation to the zoning board with regard to the requested dimensional relief, and to authorize the town planner for a written decision consistent with the board's findings, in fact, a motion for the signature of the chair and subsequent report.
Should we attach the town planner's memorandum?
Yes.
I don't know how to.
We should also attach the town planner's memorandum to that motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All not in favor?
If I can clarify, the applicant is not requesting a zone change from council. We are maintaining the underlying R2 zone and requesting dimensional relief under the R80 zone.
I believe that the first time around, the motion was written up, including that zone change in the motion, but that's no longer the case. So that element should be removed from the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I request that element be removed from the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All not in favor? The ayes have the amended motion.
We'll need a separate motions for the waiver and variances, or was that included?
Those were included.
Okay, all right, just wanted to.
Thank you. Okay, new business. Yeah. The next matter is new business, the Sloboda subdivision, ID 21-01, public hearing.
Thank you very much. There are quite a few of us here this evening, so appreciate being able to have this matter heard. My name is John Restivo, attorney from Darrow Everett. I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Timothy Behan. He's the engineer on this project from Commonwealth, and as I mentioned, the Sloboda family is with me as well. One of my favorite things about this application, this project, which we've been working on for a couple of years now, is whenever I see the abutters list, it's I think it's a perfect reflection of, kind of captures the spirit of this project. When you go through it, you see Sloboda, 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 Sloboda. They're surrounded by Slobodas because the Sloboda family has been living on Whipple Road and building their family there for generations. And as a land use attorney, you don't always get to choose the projects that walk through your door that you have to present to a board. But it's always nice when a project like this comes around because it's exactly the type of thing that, I think communities want to see. They want to see families that have been here for generations, where a new generation is coming in, looking to build their families here as well. It's something that you don't get an opportunity to see as much as you used to, but it is nice to see that it is still happening. It's still happening in Smithfield. So I hope that this is an easy application for you guys to review. When it was before this board, it was 2 years ago at this point. It's very, very similar to its current condition. The board was able to make the findings that are required under the Land Use and Subdivision Act. I know the planner has prepared a memorandum that goes through that as well as a list of recommendations, including a number of conditions. I would like to point out we did submit the soil erosion permit already. That was dropped off this morning. We would appreciate certainly final plan being able to be heard administratively. But in the years since this matter was last heard, the project's been going through all the other conditions and process that goes into a subdivision. Certainly more complicated than it was when Dan's father subdivided the property to give lots to him and his siblings years ago. But the process is what it is, and we've been able to get through DEM. DEM's issued all of their approvals, going to the technical review committee. They provided their positive recommendation. And so with that, I'd like to turn things over to our engineer to get into more of the detail about the project itself. Thank you.
Well, thank you. For the record, my name is Timothy Behan, professional engineer with the firm Commonwealth Engineers and Consultants, Providence, Rhode Island. I have a plan set here I'd like to walk through.
Southern site is the blue property. We have Whipple Road up top here. It's 14.76 acres in size. It's and we do have a stream coming down through the property into a pond.
I'm with you. I'm with you, so we don't have a.
The proposed plan is to have 3 lots, near private road. We have lot 1, which is 3.86 acres. We have lot 2, which is 3.54 acres, and lot 3, which is 6.55 acres in size. Lot 3 is situated down here, has frontage off Whipple, but through the wetlands. We do have a driveway access utility easement going through lot 2 to get to lot 3. And similar situations located from the cul-de-sac to lot 1, where a piece of the driveway needs to go through lot 2. Under the proposed plan, we just show the 3 homes, and the grading plan, we do have the road graded to a stormwater EMP system down here, where it goes through a sand filter system for water quality treatment and into an extended detention pond back, so it sheet flow through the water back to the river system. We did apply to the septic division for the on-site wastewater treatment system. We have a subdivision suitability permit from DM. We applied to the freshwater wetlands for the wetland permit, and that section also issued what we call the Rickey's permit for soil and erosion control measures for the site. The site is serviced with private wells and septic systems. The next sheet shows the proposed road. Once again, it's 460 feet or so in length, and travel, and we have the typical town cul-de-sac at the end, which has been reviewed at the TRC movie. And actually, we also have a bunch of plantings along the
The proposed street line is high bush blueberries and winterberry hollies at 5-foot intervals. And that was dictated and specified by the DEM director of the process. And the next sheet would be the soil erosion controls for the subject site, where we have the typical fresh stone entrance. We have sediment traps during construction. We have soil stockpile areas, and perimeter silt fence, compost filter, sod pipe treatment. And after that, it's typical details of construction. Pretty straightforward, simple project, and we're looking to answer the questions you may have.
It's 6:21. We're going to open the matter for public hearing initially. If anyone would like to come forward to speak on the project, please do so. Please identify yourself with your current home address.
Hi, my name is Robert Leach. I'm here representing Town of Smithfield Historic Preservation Commission, which I'm the chair. I just want to have a couple of quick things that we saw. We know the site. Along the eastern edge, there was some significant, you can see it here on your plans, there was some significant alteration of stone walls and wetlands along that east side, nothing to do with this applicant whatsoever. It was again brought to our attention by Mr. Behan, rightfully so. The reason we mention is we have purview over advising you on stone walls. So we basically have no exception to the application with the condition that the east is already altered, so we would have no purview over any stone walls along that eastern boundary. So good luck with the project.
Thank you. Anyone else? With no one else, we'll close the public hearing at 6:22 p.m. Questions for the board members of the applicant?
There's no variances or recommendations needed for this? This all zoning or?
No, there was a condition for that zoning had imposed that last time the property was subdivided, but the zoning board voted to remove that a while back. So nothing further is needed. No further relief is needed.
Okay, thank you.
I believe we did address waiver issues, and at the last meeting, there was road width and cul-de-sac pitch and that thing, and interior lot angles were addressed at master plan. So there was no need to revisit those again.
Sure what sheet this is. It's one of your detail sheets. It's the culvert detail. Where exactly is that happening?
That's happening. Go to the road profile. See, this was the device.
Okay. It looks like it's a substantial retaining wall. Is that?
It's not substantial, it's only,
No, I mean, from your detail, the detail itself looks like it's.
one side is only 2 feet high, the other side is probably 4 or 5 feet high.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, so what do you, believe the two sides are? You said maybe 2 feet on one side, 4 feet on the other side? Yeah, I get it, yeah.
The preliminary subdivision suitability from DEM was issued on September 13th. Have you had any feedback from them since then about suitability finalized?
The septic system process, you get what they call a preliminary subdivision suitability approval. That's for the subdivision. Now, once we get final approval for the subdivision, you go back to the DEM septic division for individual house lots.
Thank you. And the utility line that was mentioned in a GIS overlay, is there any concern with that?
So I know that the planner did look into that. We couldn't find anything on title going back over 100 years.
Our GIS picked up an easement that ran generally in the area where there was an old power line easement. We looked back through the deeds going back, to 100 years and didn't see any reference to the easement. Clearly, there was a line there, but it was removed years ago. But we couldn't find any, easement on a subsequent or adjoining deeds that showed where that was. And I know this line ran through all the way down to Whipple Road and into the center of Georgiaville.
But it was removed years ago.
Yeah, it was removed years ago. It goes through Pheasant Ridge and through that development as well. But poles haven't been there for years. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions of board members? There was I saw a reference to a street tree planting. Is that considered at all in your plans?
The reference in the back of the permit for DEM,
Yes.
that's the protection for the trees when you're working near them.
Well, no, the street tree planting plan in accordance with the ordinance. Has any consideration been given to that?
Well, we have a planting plan, but it's pretty much dictated by the DEM because a large portion of it is in their buffer zone. So they've told us to use certain species spaced at 5 feet on center throughout that, and that's indicated on sheet 5.
I think you're probably referring to Kevin Cleary's comment. Yeah. Typically on private roads like this, we wouldn't enforce the tree planting, but I mean, it's something that, I guess at the discretion of the board, but on a private road like this, we're not going to maintain them. They're going to be on their property. So we would have no jurisdiction to say if somebody planted them and go in and cut them down a year later. So it's up to the board if they want to,
Make a requirement.
Right.
There's a reference in the technical review. Recommendation that it be put in
Correct.
place.
Yep.
What you're saying is generally when it's a non-private road.
Yeah, typically they would have to comply with our regulations if it was a public road. So being private, it's discretionary. So.
I apologize if I missed. I apologize for coming in the middle of your presentation. But is this area 100% wooded as of right now, or is there some sort of clearing already there?
There's been some areas in the past that have been cleared, but generally it's growing back now. It's pretty wooded. But if you look in the existing conditions plan, which is sheet 2, there is a gravel driveway. You see this gravel driveway? There's a gate up here and a gravel driveway coming in. And you see this kind of messed up topography area. That area is generally open there, and this driveway comes in, and there's a little spur that goes down there. But overall, there's trees out there. There's no massive open area or anything like that.
Any other questions of board members?
Mr. Chairman. So the fire department, one of their questions or statements actually is that a cistern will be installed in the turnaround. I'm not sure if I see that on the drawings. Is there a cistern on the drawings?
So I believe they did say in lieu of a cistern that residential sprinkler systems would also be acceptable.
Okay.
And that was our intent, was to use those instead.
So that's the intent, is to put residential sprinklers?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that letter was included in what you have, but, right. Certainly willing to share.
There's a letter from the fire marshal
Okay.
that on November 13th, 2023.
That's okay. I believe you.
He basically said you can provide a 10,000-gallon cistern.
Yep.
Sprinklers in the home.
Yep.
Or a dry hydrant to the pond.
Okay, so you're intending to put sprinklers in the.
At this time.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
I mean, Chairman, it just seems like an awfully big area in general to just clear down completely. Is that the plan, or do you guys have a plan as to how it's gonna look once it's built, from a building perspective versus environment perspective?
The whole lot's not being cleared.
Okay,
okay.
I'm just trying to understand, like, if you have some type of idea of how that would look in the future.
Yes, on sheet 4,
Yep.
you'll see what's called a limit of disturbance line.
Mhm.
That would be the cleared area. So there's a line type there with a straight line and little circles. See that? It goes around the house here.
I do.
So that's the limit of disturbance line. So all this is remain trees, a lot of it's trees.
Yeah, and I think they technically could have put 4 lots there, but Sloboda's only had 3 children to give them to, so I don't think they're having any more.
You're saying that dotted line outlining the individual homes and stuff you have drawn in?
There's a line.
I'll make sure I'm looking at the same line as you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could bring it over. You want to see this?
Should have brought my glasses.
Yes, make sure we're looking at the same line.
Look at this line. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any board members? Any discussion between board members? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the plan and that the board install the following conditions of this preliminary plan approval. The board accept the memo from the planning department for this preliminary plan and supporting documents into the record, which include Exhibit B, findings of facts from our planning subdivision regs. The board grant preliminary plan approval as submitted for the proposed 3-lot subdivision with waivers with the waivers that were granted at master plan and with the required findings as shown in Exhibit B1 provided by the planning department. That the final plan show compliance with Stonewall ordinance for all driveways, roadway penetrations, that a soil erosion permit be submitted at the final plan stage, and that the final plan approval be handled by the administrative planning officer.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All not in favor? The ayes have it, the motion's granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next matter is West Greenville Residence ID 2313. Comprehensive permit application, major land development, master plan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Timothy Kane. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Rhode Island, and I have an office at 627 Putnam Pike in Greenville. I do represent Adler Properties LLC, and I'm pleased to be before you tonight with respect to this application. My clients have tentatively named the project West Greenville Residences, but we are amenable to a name change, and we are now contemplating the residences at Longhouse. And the reason for that is Mr. Leach and the Historic Preservation Committee has made my clients aware that there are remnants of an historic structure, which I'm sure he'll tell you about, known as the Longhouse. My clients have walked the site with Mr. Leach. They've done some redesign, which Mr. Casali will tell you about, to preserve that site to the greatest extent possible and memorialize that site for the public. So next time it comes before you for preliminary, we're here for master tonight. My guess is it will be called the Residences at Longhouse. As you can see from the application, Adler Properties is proposing a 12-unit residential community. It would be 12 apartments, each with 2 bedrooms, each with a single-car garage and an outside parking spot dedicated to the units also. It is being filed as a comprehensive permit, as 3 of the units will be considered affordable with affordability restrictions monitored by Rhode Island Housing. Like everything Adler does, it will be a first-class development. And as you can see from the packet submitted, we do have a letter of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing that allows this project to move forward. From a personal perspective, although I appear before this board almost every month or every other month, I've never taken a comprehensive permit. I guess I have the luxury of being able to refuse those. I'm from town personally, and I'm not crazy about some of the comprehensive permits. I think some of the locations I don't like, and I don't like the large ones. In this case, I have no problem with the comprehensive permit. I think the location is ideal. They're not putting it at the end of a dead-end street and bringing, undue traffic by many neighbors' houses. When you look at the location, in the immediate area, you have the Village at Waterman Lake, right up the hill, which is, as you know, congregate living, high density. Across the street, you have the Lakes Adult Resort Condominiums, 55 and older, which is a condominium, very nice condominium project. You have 5 single-family houses in the area, and up the street, you have a business. You have the Powder Mill Creamery, and you also have someone that has a nursery right up the street. So given the location and the surrounding land uses and the density of this project, I don't think it will stick out like a sore thumb, as some of these can. I think it would fit in quite nicely to this spot. When you're looking at housing and comprehensive permits in general, where do you want to put them? You want to put them where it's served by town water, sewer, and both of those are available. We also have gas. You have immediate access to Route 44. You have recreational opportunity. You have the Ken Weber Conservation Area right across the street. You can literally walk into the woods, and the beautiful walking trails in Ken Weber. If anybody's been back there, it's spectacular. There's a waterfall. You can walk up by the orchard. So you have all those things which make it an ideal location. And it's also on a bus line, which is important to people. And not everybody wants to drive to Providence and buy a $50,000 car and pay for gas. So people do take that bus number 9. It's also a 5-minute walk to Greenville, where you have restaurants, churches, banking, medical offices. You've got lots of things there. You have everything but a supermarket within walking distance. The proposal will help address a strong demand for housing in Smithfield, especially rental housing. Try and find a nice apartment in Smithfield. They're few and far between. And it does add 3 affordable units to the town's housing stock. So that's just my introductory comments. Mr. Casali will come up and he'll walk you through the plan. And USIT has a super board tonight. When you hear a comprehensive permit, we don't go to zoning, we don't go to the town council. You have the authority to grant all relief that's requested. So I'd like to have Mr. Casali come up and do his thing and walk you through the plan from an engineer standpoint.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name's Joe Casali. I'm a registered professional engineer with offices at 300 Post Road in Warwick. If I may, Mr. Chairman, as Attorney Kane said, I hope the 2 things you'll notice from the cover slide is That's a beautiful rendering of what we expect this project to look like. And when you look at the surrounding area, I think it's important that it fits into the surrounding area, and this project definitely does that. The other thing you'll notice, as Attorney Kane laid out, is we have made some changes since we filed this application. Subsequently went to the Technical Review Committee hearing, and I will lay out some of the historical elements to the parcel and why those changes were needed. One of the elements we changed is we'd like to incorporate the name as the residences at Longhouse. But anyway, let's look at where we are, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the subject property. West Greenville Road, Route 44, Putnam Pike, Mapleville Road, and that's the subject parcel. Assessors Plat 1B, Lot 6. As Attorney Kane said, it's about 2.5 acres, 2.4 to be exact, and it's entirely in the mixed-use zone. It is right adjacent to the entrance to the village at Waterman Lake. There is an existing garage that's encroaching on the property. That will be relocated onto its own parcel, Lot 5, which is next door. And the parcel, you'll see that northern boundary line is demarked by a nice stone wall. But there's also other stones that were found in the area. We found some foundations. You can see that's a good picture of it. It's an old remnant stone foundation. It was a small portion of it. We also found a small foundation wall that we think went to a chimney. I know there are some red clay bricks there and some mortar on there, but we think that these stones are relatively old in terms of their historical significance. And then there's an abandoned stone well right adjacent to that. You can see there's the well right there. And that's what we think from aerials was the approximate location of the Longhouse. Here's a great picture of it for those of you that are unfamiliar. This was, we believe, 1755. We don't know exactly when the photo was taken, but that's a good picture of what the Longhouse may have looked like back close to 200, 300 years ago. There's another view of it. You can see it's a stepped foundation, which makes sense because that's how the topography exists today. And that's an aerial. That is the oldest aerial that we can piece together. That's from about 1939. It's actually 4 aerials that we pieced together. You can see, unfortunately, by then the Longhouse was long gone. It was no longer there by the 30s. We don't know when it was demolished. Nonetheless, we'd like to, with the revised design, preserve as much of that area as possible. And let me explain. One of the first things, besides the name change we'd like to do is maybe put some type of placard. Here's a similar one that we have right here in Esmond, where the pedestrian bridge is. So we're thinking of something in harmony with the other placards in the community that can just give some history to the Longhouse. And then in terms of the design, the building envelope and our proposal, it's a 12-unit residential community. 25% of 3 of those will be to the low to moderate income standards, which is important for the community, meeting its 10%. Each one of the units, they're about 1,400 square feet, gross square feet. So they're 700 foot plates, and then they're double stories. They're all 2-bedroom condominium units. In terms of density, for a development, as you know, Mr. Chairman, with 25% of the units being affordable, you're at 5 units per acre. With the 2.5 acres, 12 units are allowed, which is what is proposed. So there's no variances or waivers in terms of density. And then the program, you can see that they're all basically duplexes that are side by side making quads. The bottom floor, living, dining room, kitchen, garage, and then the top floors where the bedrooms and the bathrooms are. There's a couple of bedrooms there for each one of them. And then this will all be framed by a private roadway. We've reduced the roadway to the maximum extent practicable in terms of 22 feet. This will allow us to reduce the amount of drainage to the maximum extent. So you'll see in a minute, we can save as much of the footprint as we can for the Longhouse. but it's also safe. You'll also see that while this was reviewed by fire at TRC, we can route the town's largest fire apparatus through this with no instances of any turning radius. So if you look at that yellow shutter that just came up, that would be the view looking there. That's a great rendering of what the 3 quads will look like. And then if you get in a little bit closer, you can see some of the finishes. Again, the Adler family is long time in this community, has done quite a bit. And so I'm sure you all feel comfortable, but we wanted to still present that type of rendering so you can see some of the elements and the finishes. These are going to be high-end residential in terms of their look. The LMI units will all be interdispersed as the code requires. There'll be 1 unit in each of the 3 buildings. Trash pickup, of course, will be private. And then in terms of parking, 2 per unit or 24 total spaces. Those are the purple cars that appeared. And then we also have plenty of room should there be visitors, should there be guests. We can easily accommodate 36 cars or 36 vehicles and not intervene at all with fire and safety. One of the elements TRC asked for is an extension of that existing western sidewalk. That, of course, is easily accommodatable and will be done. Town engineer asked for some striping to be coordinated with DOT, which is prudent and practicable. And then in terms of drainage, you can see the site splits in a little ways. We've got most of the site, at least on that western side, comes right down from this high point into that small kettle hole. We have some of the site here, and then also we have a ledge outcropping here. And so we'll mimic that for the drainage. That's why you'll see all of the water tables and all the test pits were taken in those relative locations. You know, sometimes we have 3 feet of depth, and then there's times that we're upwards of 8 feet of depth, excuse me. So in terms of drainage, we're going to have some walkouts to minimize the grading. Stone walls will be incorporated, and then you'll see the different appurtenances and elements to the multi-step drainage design that will ultimately route all of that water into infiltrations and detention ponds. This is the basin you'll notice that is different on your plans. We've redesigned that basin so we can accommodate as much as we can where that longhouse footprint will be, and I'll show you that in a minute. Sewer's pretty straightforward. We have gravity right outside the property. We'll just implement a manifold, excuse me. Water's the same as in terms of gas as well. Simple manifold, and the same thing with water, 12-inch line, domestic fire protection. Lucky enough that we have a fire hydrant right outside the front entrance. It's going to be private water lines, so we're going to have a heated enclosure or a hot box for at least the domestic services. And then that's the fire apparatus. So that's the largest vehicle that we have in this community and surrounding communities. And you can see that it can easily maneuver even with the 22-foot wide roadway. Lighting, Mr. Chairman, will all be dark sky compliant LED lighting. Landscaping, we will conform to the zoning code. Landscaping will come at the second stage. We'll have a local designer like Diane Soul on our team. So just to assure you, there'll be no variances or waivers in terms of landscaping. Some snow removal areas are easily seen. And then ultimately, in terms of our relief, as Attorney Kane said, while we're not subject to the zoning board, we do want to outline any of the variances or waivers from the code. So from a front yard setback, 50 is required. We're proposing 30, respectfully requesting relief of 20. Side yard setback, 24 30 is required, 24 is proposed, asking for relief of 6. Rear yard setback, 50 feet, 42 proposed, 8 is requested. And then out of an abundance of caution, that roadway width, public road is 30 feet. you don't have standards on your private roads. But if we were to compare this to a public road, we're asking to be reduced to 22 feet, which is a reduction of 8. And then lastly, the cul-de-sac is designed a little bit differently than the code, which we think is more prudent for the snow removal areas and for the fire apparatus. So as we discussed, Mr. Chairman, before the TRC back in November, here before you tonight only for master plan for our comprehensive permit. We do have a ways to go with DEM, with the DOT, with the sewer authority, with the town engineer's office, Greenville Water, Smithfield Fire, landscape, and then back before the local board, or as Tim calls you guys, I guess you know, the super board of review. And then final plan respectfully delegated to the administrative officer. I'd be happy, Mr. Chairman, to answer questions of you, members of the board. Scott Adler, Jeremiah Adler is with me here as well, if there are any questions from the owners or the operators.
Mr. Chairman?
Public hearing first. We're going to begin with the public hearing first. 6:50, public hearing is open. If anyone would like to come forward and speak, please do so. Again, please state your name, address.
Mr. President. Robert Leach again, from your Town of Smithfield Historic Preservation Commission. I'm coming up in public, in the public hearing period. Usually we step up because we consider ourselves staff, even though we're volunteers. So I'll do whatever is the proper protocol for this board. I appreciate some of the comments that were made. I know there's been a short turnaround after the technical review commission, but I admire some of the work of Mr. Casali and Mark and the Adler. So I noticed that they did make some accommodation for our comments from Technical Review Committee. I think you received a large packet from us. Is that true? Everybody got that part packet? So we wanted to make sure that you knew what we knew, because we are your advisory eyes and ears for historic preservation, stonewall ordinance, and to a certain extent, tree clearing, if there are specimen trees, that sort of thing. So our advisory opinion, we work closely with Michael, make sure we're on the right track, and we're of one thought. So with that, I'll just read something for the general ordinance that talks about the historic nature of this. And by the way, Joe, you're correct in that you mentioned the site plans and the building. The building was starting to deteriorate around 1908, and they took it down in about 36. That's when they actually named the bridge there, the Longhouse Bridge. So you're in good company if you look at the tiles on that as well. This portion of the site and its features are historically significant. The property is identified in early map surveys and photographs as the factory lot, made famous by the construction of the Longhouse circa 1755. The original structure, now mostly missing, was constructed by Captain Andrew Waterman, Esquire, a direct descendant of Roger Williams. He was the grandson of Resolved Waterman, who was the first settler in Greenville in 1689. Captain Waterman was appointed to the Smithfield Company of Minutemen in May of 1775. That's the one that builds this building. He was a delegate to the Continental Congress in 1790 and was one of the signers of the Rhode Island Declaration of Independence in 1776. And I gave genealogy and where you can find all these facts that we want to enter into evidence. The other thing is that the building was about 160 feet long. The Longhouse was also the pest house and designated a quarantine center during the smallpox epidemic of 1779. Probably they would have used it for the last 10 years with COVID and everything else we've had, but it's long gone. So with that, and thanking and complimenting the builders, we did meet on site with the owners and did come to some potential compromises. If the calculations for drainage didn't occur, we have kind of an agreed upon limit of disturbance, but I think with the designers, it might be that this looks like the cellar hole that was there with the stone features. There are numerous ones. including large stepping stones, as you've seen, et cetera. So we think we can work in good faith with the Adlers, so we're not going to hold this application up. We think it's a great project, and that's basically our facts that we wanted to bring to you in our comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What?
Be okay to ask,
Most certainly.
this being a state permit and a significant historic resource in the town and significant historical figure for the state, does this trigger any kind of state historic preservation review?
We contacted the state archaeologist, usually, and especially if there's any findings of fact that because we deal in deeds and things that we can then present you evidence, not just our opinions. So in this case, we don't know that there's any Indian remains or artifacts, but I'm sure that we will get letters, if you so desire, from the state of Rhode Island saying, oh, yes, this is important. We thought our research was probably enough to carry the day and to influence a builder of good standing in our town, that we should work something out, save at least that portion that has all the structures. So that's why I say we feel confident. There isn't any grant money. Was one of the things we always look at, is there something for that? And we would expect that the state would provide us through Charlotte Taylor an archaeological review to tell us things that we may have missed in the short turnaround that we had in order to research this. So I don't know, is that a good enough answer for what you're asking?
I think so. So at that point, the state reviewing that, which sounds like pretty much you've done what I used to be familiar with, a phase one archaeological investigation. The state, you're not anticipating the state requesting any kind of additional, like phase two or phase three archaeological investigations?
I don't believe they will. As I mentioned, I contacted the state archaeologist. We're waiting to hear back. It's only been a few days. This is a very quick turnaround for us. I was going on vacation, and this kind of got dropped in my lap. By the time I saw it, I had 2 days to prepare for the technical review committee meeting, which we sit on. And then a few days I had to hustle it up so that I could still go on vacation, but it delayed me 2 days, you guys. Anyway, thank you very much. We're available for more questions offline if you, yes, sir.
Charlie? I know you're busy, and stuff like that, but did you have enough time to look into, like, I guess the question, are we gonna be liable by the state?
I don't believe so. If you want to,
But I have a question for you. Stone walls, especially when it be removed and stockpiled, are okay with that?
the majority of the I'm sorry, go ahead.
We could not touch the stone walls. We could not. The last meeting, Councilman Ionati and people were talking about, you couldn't even touch them. You can't move them, can't stockpile them, because there was an applicant that wanted to move a stone wall on 116 and to do something, he was denied to even remove and move the pile. So I just want to make sure if there's an ordinance not to be touched, to be touched, when do we make the changes? What guidelines do we decide that one guy can remove them and it's okay, and another historical part can't be? How do you make that decision?
Well, as you know, there are new amendments that Mr. Ionati, I think, is here tonight, worked on very carefully to make sure that some of those answers and fairness is there. So the process is laid out. I have documents with me if you want me to give you one, and it shows exactly what you have to do in order to bring it to this board and commission. There has to be some work done to say, this is what we want to do. We want to move this. This is how we're going to do it before the work is done. So even if you give a general approval, there's still going to be another bite at the apple. I think Michael is very aware of that as well. The issue here is that 99% of the stone walls are at the perimeter, and I can be corrected if you want on existing conditions, but I don't see any stone walls are being proposed to be moved The only thing we wanted to do was make sure that in the area where the historic longhouse was, that we maintain and preserve as much of the real historic fabric as we can. So I don't see where there's any dramatic amount under existing conditions where there were stone walls to be altered.
I'm sorry if there's confusion, but there's no stone walls being proposed to be touched on this property. Initially, on the plans you received, the longhouse walls, we were going to restack them into a monument.
Well, I'm going by here, it says remove existing and stockpile stone wall.
That's just a stockpile of stone. That's not a historic stone wall that was built before 1900. It wouldn't meet your definition of stone
Well,
walls.
what I'm trying to find out is what the definition is on this.
It's clear in your ordinance, there's a whole statute, one of the elements is it's pre-existing 1900, which is a little difficult to prove because the oldest area in this area is 39, sometimes I can find areas 20s, but again, that's the definition. I also want to make clear that this parcel has significance in terms of historical elements, but this is not in an historical district. We're not under the state auspice, we're not under the federal auspice, and that's almost too bad, Mike, because if we were, we would open ourselves up to monies and our ability to do things. So we're not in a historic district, but we recognize the significance of some of the historical elements, and at the expense of the applicant. It wasn't the redesign. This comes with a cost. At the expense of the applicant, they decided to redesign this to preserve to the maximum extent practicable anything that has historic significance. So I just want to be clear on those two tracks. I don't want to give up on stone walls and what the last guy did. We're not asking for anything.
Well, Mr. Casale, in all fairness, I have a right, I'm asking a question, what you want to do and what I, it's good thing for me. I'm talking about, I'm asking something like that. That's what I'm asking the question I was asking. My next question is then, I would like to ask.
Why don't we go with questions with the witness and then.
I can finish.
Then
Yes,
we'll
sir.
have Mr. Casale address questions of the board, just to keep it streamlined.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There is an iteration here where some of the things that were on the earlier plan, since Mr. Casale has spoken with the owners, there have been some changes. So those changes, one of the things you noticed about Stockholm stone walls, there's going to be a lot of there's already been a tremendous amount of disturbance on the site. At the request of the owners, I've been there and they gave me permission to walk the entire site, which I photographed everything. There's a lot of soil that's been moved around. It was a difficult site. It's been heavily altered some time ago. So I think the stones are talking about, once they start excavating and moving things around, they're going to find, because this is glacial moraine, they're going to find boulders of all sizes, and they're saying they're going to stockpile those so that they can build new stone walls from new material behind the buildings. We take no exception to that. And so I think it's a good call that you saw that, but it is not germane to the ordinance, because the stones that they're stockpiling, it's new stone that's going to be brought up, some from a below grade. So we don't have any thoughts on how they might do that. Can ask us for opinions on what does a stone wall look like, but in this case, that can be something that they decide with the stone walls behind the buildings. Otherwise, if you went to that site, you'll see some stone features there that are, 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall, Jeremiah? There's some big, tall, and those aren't being touched. So we've gone full circle around the entire property, and we're satisfied that we can do what I think this commission would want to do based on the very important history of this site. I think there's going to be a good compromise, and everybody will be happy that we did the right thing, and we secured another piece of our history that would have been lost had we not investigated it further. So to that point, if you noticed in my opening statement, I did say this application is incomplete. That was actually to get the attention of Mr. Casali, but I think he took it the way that I implied it as chair, that, hey, let's look at this piece again. So don't read too much into that, other than it was a device to get Mr. Casali's attention.
Well, it got my attention too, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's true. It's not theater. It's true. We want the surveyors to catch all this stuff, bring these features to you so that we can either comment on them, and they may find things that we might not even see. I mean, we're not perfect on these things. We do study stone walls religiously. I've got, 70 plus years of looking at stone walls myself, having been a historian for a long time. But there are some things where there's a knowledge base that is educational and some that's empirical by living in Smithfield, looking at stone walls, studying stone walls, and getting other professionals, for instance, from the person, Mr. Thorson, who is professor of geology in Connecticut, who wrote the book that is attached to our ordinance. So if you want to know about stone walls, more about stone walls, Mr. Thorson's book is, I think the kids call it TMI, too much information. Any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'll just finish, Mr. Moon, that if this was a federally protected site, we would have to do a 106 review, which I'm sure you've heard about. And so that would bring it to the next level if it was a National Register, a nominated and approved site, as we have with numerous other buildings.
Or a potential National Register site. Or a potential National Register.
Yes, if that's exactly right, if it was eligible.
Federal permits or federal monies. But I just want to make sure that we're clear of all state requirements. Considering this is a significant state-related.
If you prefer, Mr. Moon, I will get correspondence from you from the state of Rhode Island, post haste, if that would better answer your question. I don't believe there is.
I think it would, and my next question was going to be for the town planner in regards to that question too. So
we don't believe there is a requirement. Okay. And I'm a registered architect in 3 states doing historic preservation work, so I've got some familiarity. But it's a very good question. I'd be happy in working with our planner, Mr. Phillips, to get some sort of communication from the state for you, if that would help.
Yeah, I think that would.
Sure. For now, and
I don't think that's a bad idea. It seems like it's light work to do.
I think after we're done with the witness, certainly the members of the board have some questions about this that we can certainly inquire with the planner and our council. Thank you.
And just for the record, we try not to come here if we don't have to. If something is a pass-through, we try to just give the information to our planner, not to get it. But this is a good experience, I think, for all of us. Thank you very much for your attention on this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public that would like to be heard on this matter? With no one else rising, public hearing is closed at 7:08 p.m. Questions of the board, initially of the applicant. Charlie?
Good, Charlie. How you doing? A little late today?
I'd like a couple of questions. I would like to go back to Mr. Kane's thing about the bus route, something like that.
Yeah.
Because part of this, I'm just looking at everything legal responsibilities of this town. Now, it says the bus stop has to be, accessible. I know it's 250 feet down the road. That technically, is that accessible?
It's 490 one way, 540 the other from the entrance.
Is there a sidewalk so that people could cross back and forth over there?
Both bus stops are on our side of the road, the north side of the road, and there is a sidewalk.
Is there a crosswalk for them to get across over there?
I don't know where the nearest crosswalk is if they were to cross that road.
Crosswalk. It's like, how are they gonna get home? I mean, they can get to Providence, but how are they gonna get home without crossing the street? They're gonna get, these are questions, Joe. Don't take it
The
personally.
bus stop is on our side of the road. They don't need to cross the road, whether they are on the bus or off the bus.
The bus stop, it's on 44, is on both sides. I understand the bus stop is there, but this,
Right.
the
So
platform.
they're going to let off, right, or pick up where the nearest crosswalk is. It's something we can look at per 44. I don't think there's anything close in that area.
That's like the technical question. So like, also it says that it has to be walking distance to the center. Greenville is like a mile, I think it's about a mile from that area there.
Right. I don't think Mr. Kane was illustrating any statutory elements that we need to meet. I think he was simply saying that there are amenities to this project. One, it's in close proximity to a bus station. Two, it's in reasonable walking distance to a town center. But that's not a statute as to where this should be located or not. That was simply one of his selling points.
I was just, that's my question is what I'm asking, if that's part of the thing.
Maybe you want to ask your planner, but I don't know of any statutory requirements that this be within walking distance.
I believe you're referring to the comp permit criteria. I mean, there are, a number of them. One of them is its close proximity to the town's existing population centers, which it is. It's on the outskirts of the village of Greenville. Project is located accessible to a major transportation route, which it is. There's a bus stop 250 feet. Proximal to community services and amenities. You've got water, sewer, gas, amenities, some, shopping up the road. So it is part of, proximal to the center of Greenville. So, yeah, I mean, it would meet the criteria for the comp permit.
Out of that paper, I noticed a comment that you had made, and you asked why they couldn't do it on Maplesville. Why was that comment? What was your concern?
Well, just to limit the number of access points on 44. Yeah, I mean,
Was there a traffic study? Did you do any traffic? Was there any traffic study that brought you into that concern about why you would want it on that?
No, it's just knowing that 44 is a difficult road to get out on sometimes because of the speeds.
I agree with you.
So, if there was a way to come out on Mapleville Road, but
Do you think for the town, it's your job, do you think that maybe on a project this close to a road that's overburdened already, that a traffic study should be just mandatory, like fill it out for a fire department, make sure there's a permit?
no, given the limited size of it, 12 units I wouldn't think would warrant a full-blown traffic study, but a traffic letter from an engineer, certifying what the site distance is and any kind of, in talking to the town engineer about, some striping changes there because there is a turnout lane that may have to be extended, and you've got a lot of things going on there with the West Greenville Road coming in.
No, I agree
So-
with your concerns, that's why I'm asking.
No, and I think,
You don't have them anymore.
but a full, at master plan, no, that's not something that's required. I think that
You'd like to see it in the future, then, you're saying?
at preliminary, we should have a letter from an engineer about, the turning site distance and, that everything's clear,
About
given
that fence
speed.
you were talking.
Yeah, the fence would, I think the fence is far enough back so that someone, pulling up there and stopping will be able to see up to the west and making a decision when to pull out, so. But that's something we would want an engineer to
No, I'm sure you look
opine
at
on.
all these technical, everything too, as the town planner or something like that. I mean, there's quite a list of things here,
Yep,
Yeah,
well, that's the process.
No, I'm asking, I'm saying these things were all done by the committee and something like that. I mean, that's why I'm asking you these questions about your concerns. And you say that you're gonna have them looked at later, what you're saying, correct?
So, Mike, if I may, as a follow-up to the Mapleville Road question, we don't have frontage on Mapleville Road. If you look at sheet 2 of 6 in your plans, the parcel is odd in the fact that its entire frontage is on 44. And so we would not have the ability to cross over Mapleville Road unless we was to purchase land from the village at Waterman Lake.
There's that little sliver of land that comes down and cuts off frontage
So in terms of a traffic study, this project will be submitted to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation for a physical alteration permit. Normally, the rule of thumb is if you don't have more than 100 trips per day in the peak hour, a traffic study is not warranted because it's just too small of an element. So in terms of this, you'll have about 2 trips per day in the peak hour, about 24, 25 trips per day. You're not even halfway to the threshold of a full-blown traffic study. And but if the Department of Transportation warrants it, we'll provide it. But that's normally a good rule of thumb and probably why the town engineer didn't ask for it.
Yeah, no, I was just asking about the town's policy, why don't we have this? This should be, like, we should do a site visit, and we should follow up some of these procedures that we just seem to skip sometimes. I think we should do a site visit on this, take a look at it. I think there should be a traffic study. This town we're going nuts with building in this town. We're just letting everything go. Zoning changes get changed every 5 minutes, 30 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. This is okay, that's okay, this is okay, that's okay. This guy, it's just getting out of hand.
Mr. Chairman, if I ask, before we dive into an $8,000 traffic study, you don't have frontage. There's no frontage on a town road here. You don't have the jurisdiction. As the local planning board, the DOT would have that jurisdiction. It only enters and exits on a state highway.
Okay.
So why would the town need a traffic study? You don't have the auspice to regulate it. I'm just asking the question.
Well,
I think we can ask.
We're filing with the appropriate agencies, which is the Department of Transportation. We certainly have filed with the town engineer and will, but to just ask for studies, for study's sake, when they're not even 25% of the threshold that the state would ask, I'm just asking the question, what is it you're asking for?
What a standard would be and what the rules are about what we do in this town from now on. If there's gonna be from now on, it's not so much what the state says we should do, it's what the.
But it's a state road, they have the jurisdiction over it, and so you have to defer.
Well, we have the jurisdiction, we have the jurisdiction of whether it comes in or comes out.
one at a time, please.
I just don't understand the need for a traffic study when it's not your road, you don't have anything, you're just asking for things to ask for things. And I'm telling you why.
Joe, I take offense to you just asking me to ask things. I'm here to.
You don't ask.
I take offense to you.
Why you don't ask for it.
He's asking,
And
he's
because the
insulting.
trips per day are less
Please,
than 100.
Stop it. Stop
Please
it.
wait one moment.
Stop doing that.
Charlie, wait one moment.
I'm not gonna take it.
Charlie, one at a time, please. Let him finish. Charlie, let him finish.
You're not answering. You just told me I'm stupid and asking a question that you don't think is important. What did you say?
I'm gonna give you an answer. The reason there's no traffic study is because it's not a town road and it's not 100 trips per day. Those are the two reasons.
Okay, my question wasn't even to you, it was to him and him. Why don't we have one? Because as a zoning board, ourselves can judge what we want one and not one. Because it's in the town of Smithfield, why can't we do it? Why can't we make an order, we want to save this, we want to do that, why can't
Well,
we do this?
He gave you the answer in that we don't have jurisdiction over state highways. We can, as I indicated, we would request a traffic letter from an engineer stating that the site distance and any kind of safety factors in coming out onto the highway are met. DOT will be looking at that as part of the PAP process. But we could also ask for a letter from an engineer stating those things.
All I want to do is somebody just to check to make sure it's all right somehow.
Well,
some way.
that's,
That's all, I'm asking.
Okay.
If it's
It
safe,
will be.
I want to make sure it's safe, there's not going to be any problems there, that's it. So I'm looking at safety and responsibility for the town, that's all I'm looking at.
Acknowledging that it's DOT jurisdiction with the state road, is it not in interest determining a new development and how much traffic that development could impact the municipality? Irrespective of the DOT road. I think that's what Charlie
That's
may
my
have
point.
been trying to get
Yeah.
at. Not saying we override DOT and mandating necessary, Mr. Casali, a study.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that. But the bigger question is, I think what he's trying to get at is the impact of this development. What, if any, is it in the surrounding area with the roadway, with general concerns? I think that's what he's driving at.
And the town engineer, Mr. Chairman, has participation in the PAP process. Before we can file a PAP, we have to have a letter from the building official or the town engineer about the project. He's also going to sit with us at all TRCs. And so the direct question was, why don't you have a traffic study? And the direct answer is, it's not a town road, and it's less than 100 trips per day.
We could,
I understand that point. I think the point that was being raised was for a little bit of a different purpose as I.
That's what my question was, Joe.
As I
We don't have
articulated.
a study, and I don't want to walk into a study.
I wasn't, like I said, Joe, don't take this personal. I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to him and them about it.
Charlie, one at a time. Let's try to keep, any other questions of the town planner?
Mr. Casali or Mr. Phelps, someone mentioned at some point that there's going to be a redo of the sidewalk. Can you just dive into that a little bit more?
There's a small section of sidewalk that is, here's a great shot of it.
The sidewalk exists on that entire street.
It does. You see that area of sidewalk that exists? There's a certain area right here that we're going to add.
So there'll be the driveway, and then there will be sidewalks connecting to the existing sidewalk from.
Yes.
There's no braided sidewalk.
That's right. Currently, there is a break, and what we're going to do is, I just want to see that little piece. We're going to extend that. That's something that the planning staff asked for at the TRC, and it's something we easily can do.
And what about the other side? Is there a break on the other side?
The sidewalk doesn't exist past this parcel. It just doesn't, it doesn't go further past. So when we look at it like from an aerial view,
You're sure about that, 100%?
yeah, you can.
Because when I was looking on Google Maps, I don't go to that side of town that often, but when I was looking on Google Maps, it looked as though the sidewalk did continue, but it could not be accurate. So,
Yeah.
to your knowledge, it does not continue past.
right, this is a 2023 aerial, and it does not exist. If the town would like, I'm sure we can extend that sidewalk just at the other end of the driveway to the end of the property line. Sorry, just trying to get there for you.
It looks like it, based on the way the driveway might not even.
Yeah, it wouldn't even matter.
I'm just for continuity purposes for the pedestrians, just to keep in mind if there is some type of unfinished sidewalk situation, if you guys could tighten that up, that would be great. It sounds like it's already done though. So that's my only question.
Mr. Casali, could you bring up the overview with West Greenville Road? What's the sight line, if any, from West Greenville Road, traffic taking a left or a right coming out? Would they have a view of the driveway?
Yeah, so.
That West Greenville Road is at times a tough road to turn right or left with traffic traveling on 44.
It is. My father lived at the village for many years. It's difficult when you're coming northbound on West Greenville Road and you're trying to make a westbound turn. All of this driveway will be right here. We purposely pushed it as further west as we could to keep it away from Mapleville Road and that West Greenville Road intersection.
Would you know if traffic turning left would be able to see traffic exiting the
And
driveway?
that's predominantly what the staff is asking for, is we're going to do a site distance analysis to go out there and look as far as we can, both east and westbound, overlay that with the traffic speeds, make sure we're in excess of the requirements of ASHTO.
We can talk about that.
I just wondered who's going to do that analysis.
I will do it as a professional engineer. Would you like to be there when we do it? We'd love to have you, Charlie.
Yeah, why not?
We'll make sure of it.
It's a little conference.
It'll be a great education. You go out there and you can see how we do a site distance analysis.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's appropriately.
For warm weather?
Any other questions?
I thought maybe you didn't like my name.
Well, we digressed a little bit. We had questions of the town planner and the applicant. Does the board have any other questions of the applicant?
Of the applicant.
That's Mr.
yeah.
Casale is representing.
Well, it has to do with some of the technical committee about the idea of the drainage of the stormwater drain coming down the driveway without a basin being connected to anything. Has that been changed, anything?
So the drainage, let's go to the drainage slide. What's the question?
It has to do with the technical committee, said the basins ain't connected to anything, they're just dry basins, not connected to anything. Not connected to any storm drains.
Right,
Run off to the street.
there's no storm drains in 44 in that area. It's all open channel. And so that's exactly what we'll replicate. All of the water that comes down and passes into the open channels on either side of 44, they'll be intercepted with the ponds. They'll be detained till the storm has passed, and then they'll meter out that water at a lesser rate. If it was a more urban area and we could connect directly into a storm drain, but it's just not that part of town.
I'm just going with the technical committee. My questions have to do with the work.
My answer is we're going to mimic the existing conditions.
And so that's why I have to get back to the person that I'm talking about that. Okay, the next one, the question is going to have to do with his also question about the gas and the water going over the ledge. His concerns about that. Do you find any concern, anything that merit in them kind of concerns?
Now, with someone like Adler Brothers, ledge isn't going to be a problem. We're going to go in there and hammer the ledge out. It's so noted that we have ledge on the property, but it's nothing I'm worried about, especially not with the builders of this project.
I'm just, once again, these are questions that were raised.
My answer is no.
All right, so I gotta get, that's your answer, but he says it could be. Okay, so the blasting, is blasting gonna be permitted over in that area?
Blasting's regulated by the state fire marshal. If we are going to blast, we will seek a permit from the state fire marshal. We'll record that in the land evidence records with the city, with the town clerk as is required.
Another question I have for you, Joe, is the deputy zoning one, on his question about the zoning.
Right, it must have been a typo. There's no R10M in town, it's R20M.
I couldn't find it either, but I was just wondering if that's a typo. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Leach, I'm just going, like I said, I'm just going through, this committee puts time into doing all this, and those are the committee correct questions I just had for you.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The review questions, I just wanted to get them, so we're looking, so I have to go back to talk to these guys about that. All right, thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Any other questions of board members of the applicant? There were some questions that perhaps board members had for the town planner or council. Are there any of those at this point?
I have one for the legal team. Something like that. Based on what you heard, is it the historical, like Mike said, do you think that what he said and everybody else has said, do you think that that's what's supposed to happen?
I do agree. I think the site analysis is going to make a big deal. It's the state highway is governed by state jurisdiction. So fortunately, you were talking about we should have an ordinance or whatnot, but we don't, and there's nothing you can do about that. That's governed by the state, that's regulated by the state.
I just want no liability is what I'm looking at. We got no liability for touching anything that we're gonna have to fix.
I don't believe the town would have any liability in that respect.
Think. Thank you.
If you're not violating the law, there can't be any liability. If you're.
Well, just
Charlie, I think he was Charlie, I think he was addressing the RIDOT PAP, physical alteration permit, not state historical law, and any possible permits that are open to that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my first job with DOT was handling historic and archaeological permits for federally funded and licensed projects. However, we did have to deal on a daily basis with the Rhode Island Historic Preservation commission, which it was named at the time, and state permits were also part of that, and state regulations and guidelines. That's just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. Any other questions of the board members, of the applicant, town planner, or council? All right, any discussion of the board members?
What's the timeline on these comp permits now, as far as, what are we looking at here, Mike? Sorry.
I believe that the time period for preliminary plans changed to 90 days, but I don't believe they changed it for comp permits, so I believe it's still 120 days for a decision.
Running from when?
Yeah, certification was. 24 October.
Yes.
Yeah. 120 days.
I believe that is correct, yeah.
From what date, Mike?
What did I put a date on there.
October 24th.
I should have given you the
Is there any interest of the board members for a site visit?
Yes.
Okay.
Just gauge the interest and go with it.
Gentlemen? Okay. I think it's a good idea. The Historical Society put some effort in. It seems like it's a very collaborative approach between the society and the applicant.
We didn't understand the history. I was on this property quite some time, didn't understand the history until Robert made us aware of it. And then as soon as we were aware of it,
Well,
we're going to do whatever they can to make it right.
It's certainly appreciative of the cooperative effort to take that into consideration, but given some of the questions that have been raised today, I think it is a good idea to do a site visit. Scheduling wise, a Saturday morning. Might be raining this Saturday.
It's a Saturday, it's going to be raining.
A week from Saturday?
Little rain won't hurt you.
25th?
Got it.
Yeah. How's everybody with the 25th?
Nope, I don't have it yet.
Do you want us to pick a different date? Okay.
I have a conflict, Mr. Chairman, if that matters.
What's that?
I have a conflict on the 25th.
It's not good for you?
It's not. The second would be.
Second is?
Yep, or the 9th.
I would say the 9th. I would say the 9th, not the 2nd, if we're going into December. Mr. Casali, what time, morning, early morning?
Sure.
9, 10 o'clock, what's everybody's pleasure? 9?
Yeah.
December 9th at 9?
Does that alleviate us from the notice requirements if we're doing this here in public?
You still have, yeah, post it.
Okay. Right, but we don't have to, there's no, okay. So yeah, December 9th at 9 a.m., that'd be great.
And what's it? 9?
9?
December 9th at 9?
Can we just make sure, well, I guess amongst ourselves, just make sure we don't perform, right?
You can if we post. That's why I was asking, because just in case.
And then we'll continue this to the next, which should be after.
I think it's 12/21.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I make a motion that we continue this matter to December 21st.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Site visits, 9 December, 9 a.m. When is that site visit?
12/9 at 9 a.m.
Okay, thanks, Joe. December 9th at 9 a.m.
Let's eat.
What?
We had another meeting last with them.
Ready for the next one?
He didn't
Take a 5-minute break. Good to go?
Yeah.
Why don't we take a 2-minute recess?
Yeah.
We're going to recess. We're going to recess for 5 minutes.
I know. Yeah, 6 to 8. Well, they shouldn't have planned it when 5 of us were here. I didn't hear everything.
Right now.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Well, right. But it was 12 units with not nearly the density that would justify the expense. Well, things in Situate with all that money.
No, crazy.
Yeah.
Different.
Oh, okay. If there was a plan down the road to add on to the 12, right?
No, he told me today.
Yeah, well, then you can do it.
Oh. Don was one of those guys, like, I didn't always love him when he was here, but I appreciate him now. Jesus, like, yeah, Don was one of those, like, Don Burns, have those relationships with people,
Yeah.
you know.
Chuck, like, how much was he the bigger point? Meaning, what is the impact?
It was just, it was comical.
How does that affect? I know we don't have your.
Yeah, Don Burns,
Yeah.
Don
Oh, yeah.
Burns, Bob.
They were in the those are the glory days for them too.
Gloria was still
Oh.
here, Esther was here, Gene Tracy.
No, it's different. No, but I think it is. I think it's less
Good ball.
how can we like, how can we modify, or how can we measure
What? Food book every day.
Oh, boy.
I think I know. When tomorrow? Big meeting in December. What? Only us. This one. I didn't know we had numbers, so. You don't know one. I wanna do, I gotta talk to you about this.
The residence, is it the residence?
No.
No,
I can't do
something else.
that. No, field house, it's preliminary, they've already seen it, so it should be quick. But then they wanna do a special use permit for the Fidelity building. Do we have to go to planning for a recommendation? I have to talk to you about that because they like.
It's a special school, is it allowed use in a two-seated school or it's a special use permit?
Special use permit for educational. Planned corporate. What happens after January 1st with that? Is it prohibited because there's no description? Don't come in January 2nd.
I mean, if they get it in beforehand, that's what they're trying to do.
Well, my call's gonna be tomorrow.
To beat the,
We'll talk about it. It's gonna, I don't want to see your number. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody ready to resume? The next matter is the Williams Road matter, ID 2310, major subdivision preliminary plan review.
Mr. Chairman, good evening again. Again, just for the record, Joe Casali, registered professional engineer, offices at 300 Post Road in Warwick. Mr. Chairman, just in the essence of time, I don't see anyone in here in the chamber other than the applicants. The McKennas are sitting right to my left. I know you've seen this application before. It was relatively straightforward. We're creating one additional lot. I'll quickly go through the PowerPoint presentation. I think that you'll see the only things that has changed is you've asked for 3 or 4 elements at the master plan hearing, and we've provided them here before you tonight at preliminary. So just to refresh, this is 117 Williams Road. You see Man School, Williams, specifically Assessors Plat 47, Lot 23, 5.5 acres in the R80 zone. The existing 3-bedroom, single-family dwelling is going to remain, as is the private access easements, as is the bond, as is the 800 square foot bond in livery that we showed you last time. This was the existing structure that we thought had some historic significance. We still believe it's unsafe and economically infeasible to rehabilitate, but we'll work with the town in any way we can to temporarily shore it up during construction, and then permanently, if they want to relocate it, if they want to repurpose elements of it, again, we're open to that, and the McKennas are here to affirm. No wetlands within 150 feet of the property, reasonable water tables at 40 inches. We just want to split the property into two, parcel A, which will house the existing house, and then parcel B, which is new. All of the stone walls will be preserved. We've actually designed the entrance at the break of the existing stone wall to not displace that stone wall at all. You can see that's where that driveway is coming in. We've formalized the turnaround for the emergency vehicles. You can see they can safely now make a 3-point turn. And that's the proposed single-family home. We presume it's about 1,700 feet and 3 bedrooms. We really have no immediate desire to develop the parcel, so that'll be a little bit subject to change. In terms of the cesspool being replaced, we actually had DEM by coincidence. This was the date they gave us to witness the soil evaluations. So we've started that process, Mr. Chairman. We had Alan Pittman out from DEM today on the site witnessing the new test holes. We got a 3.5-foot water table, which is suitable for a septic system. Septic system on the existing parcel, drainage, the tree line, everything really falls into place. One point of relief we needed was a pre-existing non-conforming condition on the existing frontage, and also the frontage for the new road. Zoning board acquiesced to that back in September 6th. So again, we were here back on August 31. This board required us or asked us if we would cooperate with the Historic Preservation Commission, which we believe that we have and will continue to do so. The tree warden, when we develop that lot, we will absolutely contact the tree warden in terms of the viability. The existing house being up to date, again, we've done that septic system determination today, so that'll be forthcoming. And the indemnification agreement, I know Attorney Tim Kane, who had to step away for another meeting, had drafted that, and I believe that's going to be with the Public Works Director probably in the morning for review and comment. So again, we were here on the 31st, Mr. Chairman, for master, September 6th zoning. We're here tonight for preliminary, respectfully requesting final plan be delegated to the administrative officer. I'd be happy to answer questions, as will the applicants.
We'll begin with the public hearing before questions. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this matter? If so, please come forward.
Thank you, Joe. Some of our concerns, we did a lot of research on this. We didn't send a big package and everything.
For the record, although this is the third time you spoke.
Yeah, Robert Leach, you're chairman of the Town of Smithfield Historic Preservation Commission, not Society, Mr. President, Commission. It's always done. Anyway, thank you very much. The only thing we had a concern about was, we already mentioned in our notes about tree preservation. It's a great little project. We don't see any problem with that. There are some maple trees, sugar maples, et cetera, and we want to make sure that everybody gets a good look at those. We've had issues with licensed arborists. If you're a licensed arborist, it means you're a tree clearing company. So we kind of look a little scant when it's a decision by an arborist, unless it's really being looked at objectively. That's my personal experience with that. So in this case, I appreciate that it's going to be looked at, tree warden, et cetera, because there are some that are right there on the right of way. The character of that street, Williams, as you know, the barn and the old Windy Brow 1808 house, it's really an important piece because it leads up to a conservation area and an outlook. So it's an amenity to the town. The the number of trees and what's make up. We need to be proportional in how we talk about it, but we don't think it's anything would impact this. And the limit of disturbance that we saw is really a relatively small area, so we're complimentary that that's happening. The building that's there looks horrible from afar. We had researched and found out where did this building come from, because it looks like an old building. And it was moved, we found, through multiple historical maps and things that we looked at, going back quite a ways, that it was an 1865 barn that was next to the Carey House that was on Williams Road. Williams Road went all the way back up to Burlingame. So we looked and said to Mr. McKenna, you know, what can we do? I think it's still a moving target as to what happens with that building, but it's genuinely a posted beam structure. Our view is we can't make people restore buildings, otherwise everything would look like 1755. But we did want to make sure that due consideration was given to that building, if it means moving it to conservation land, having it stay on site, being located again, made into a garage, whatever it is. We just didn't want to see it destroyed. But our purview is, as an advisory one to boards and commissions and to you, we can't dictate terms. That's not something we have the purview to do. We try to be very careful to be proportional again with our opinions on what is under our purview. So it's a great little building. The site looks like it's being protected. As long as we don't lose too many trees, I think it's going to be a great success. And whoever buys and builds on that lot is going to really have a really nice street, maintaining the historic character of that street in perpetuity. Is there any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Go ahead, John.
I want to thank you for all your work and information, by the way. I agree with you. The driveway looks good. They're going to save that like that. The concern is with that building. Has anybody been contacted, like, to buy it? I mean, make sure, even if it's going to be knocked down, the timbers can be saved or something, put an ad.
I've already reached out to companies.
It does that, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, and it.
Are they chestnut and beams and stuff like that? Stuff's valuable.
Yeah, it's you know, we had a discussion with Mr. McKenna, and it's kind of in play, but we certainly want to hold up the subdivision because of that. But we just want to be a good influence in the room. Sometimes that's the best we can do. And so complimentary again of Mr. Casale's work here. The placement and the amount of alteration is very minimal. That's not always the case. So we would like to work further with the owners and with this board to see if we can just do the best we can. That's all we're saying. But it is an important historic structure, and there may be somebody that would take it down, reuse the post and beam structure, or if the new owner, and this is projecting, says, oh yeah, well, we like that, we'd like to redo it. That's beyond our expertise, and it would be unfair of us to get too far down the road to Mr. McKenna. So thank you very much. Any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
I'm going to go home now. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you hearing us and setting a good precedence.
Any other members of the public that would like to speak on this matter? With no other members of the public, the public hearing is closed at 7:53. Questions of the board of the applicant? Okay, Mr. Casale.
Can that building be saved as long as possible, just given there's not much time? Is it in any way in your construction?
Yeah, we have already committed to temporarily shoring it up
I saw that.
until they,
It's not in your way, I can see.
No, we've purposely stayed away from it. I do think that's probably its fate is maybe we can save some of the key elements. There are some really nice beams in there. I don't think they're structural, though. They would be something that, you'd put up more decorative. But they're certainly, they're beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Chestnut.
Yeah, they may have been hemlock or chestnut, I'm not sure, but It's, yeah, but that's really where we think its fate is going to be, is, again, not being on the National Historic Register. There's no funding mechanisms.
No, I agree with you, and I just wanted to ask you if you could
Yeah,
just go.
but there's no need to be respectfully ignorant of it and just rip it down and demolish it, because there are historical elements
I think
there.
we'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the board, of the applicant? Any other questions of the board, of town planner or council? I do have one question. The whole harmless agreement, I know we don't have Mr. Kane here. Has that been provided to the town's satisfaction?
Yeah, we got it this afternoon. We're going to have the town solicitor review it, and we'll review it with the Public Works Director. But there may be some additional language we need to add regarding trash pickup and stuff.
Will that interfere with what we're doing today?
No, I think if the board, so chooses, will, if you grant me the ability to do final approval, I can certainly provide you with, what we come up with for a final draft, but that would be fine.
My only concern is that the agreement is acceptable to town and the town council, that's all.
Yeah, I think the zoning board, when they heard it, I know it was something that got overlooked when we did master plan, but the zoning board did make it one of their conditions that this hold harmless be in place. So in Mr. Kane drafted up, the preliminary framework for it, it seems to be acceptable, whether we have to add a few things to it, I think, so.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board members? Do we have a motion?
Chairman, I move that the board accept the memo from the planning department dealing with the preliminary plan submission and the supporting documents that will be part of the record. That will be the final following conditions attached to that decision. That the owner allow the Historic Preservation Commission to access the historic structure to document and assess the building condition and to take temporary measures to stabilize the structure during construction throughout the fee necessary by the Historic Preservation Commission. That the owner cooperate with the commission to allow an off-site relocation to building if that's feasible. That the tree warden be conducted contacted and consulted regarding the viability of trees located in the town right of way. The proof would be that the existing home has an up-to-date septic system of plans, provide plans for a new upgraded system. That the applicant provide the town with an indemnification agreement, which apparently they have, to continue to conduct the winter plowing and the icing operations, the roadway and trash, subject, that agreement is subject to review by the approval by the town.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it. Motion approved.
Do we make a motion about administrative final? Is that, do we want to see it back here at final, or is that part of the motion? I'm sorry.
I don't think it was it part of the motion?
Yeah, I didn't put it in the motion. Apologize.
Is that something you?
Yeah, I think given the limited nature of the project, it's one lot. So yeah, I would think administrative, approval for final would be acceptable.
Do we have a motion to amend?
You can make it a separate motion if you want.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, move to grant administrative review of final plan by the administrative office Planning Department for Williams Road, ID 23-10.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Not in favor? The ayes have it. Motion's approved. The next matter, I'm sure I'm going to butcher the first name, Rubius Therapeutics?
It is Rubius.
Oh, not bad. Second request for extension of master plan approval.
Canton City Road.
Yes, again, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, Joe Casali, registered professional engineer, offices at 300 Post Road in Warwick. Hopefully, it's a straightforward request to just have this extended a second time. As you know, with the pharmaceutical industry, we did not receive FDC approval for our patented drug. They're back to the drawing board, so to speak. But looking at other, this is a very viable facility where they're just looking at other pharmaceutical companies or maybe another strand within their division to bring this back. But we really haven't heard much since that denial. If you know the site, there's probably only a couple people working there. But out of an abundance of caution, we would like to respectfully request our second 2-year extension.
Any questions of the board?
I move to extend the
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All not in favor? The ayes have it. Motion approved.
Thank you. Have a great holiday. We'll see you all on the 9th.
Happy Thanksgiving. I was reaching for my computer, and I went down. I put my weight on my hands, and I torqued my finger sideways, and it snapped a tendon. So it's called a mallet. It's a soft tissue injury. It could be a bone injury, but this is a soft tissue one. One more week. Right? I'll sue myself. Being too fat and falling down on my hands.
The last matter I believe we have is a review of proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and amendments.
Yes, I believe you have a brief memo on the proposed amendments. There are really two things we're looking at tonight. The first is an amendment dealing with the battery energy storage facilities. We currently don't have a specific use category for this. In looking at it, we felt it was kind of an oversight in our ordinance. We're looking at the current one that's before the board as under the general utility use category. But given the nature of this type of facility, we believe it's necessary to have a specific use category for it with specific review criteria for the board. We're proposing that it be allowed by special use permit in the industrial zone and our planned corporate zone. Obviously, these things are industrial in nature and have, given some of the hazards, known hazards of, citing them, that they should be far away from residential structures and residential development. To that end, we've developed some basic criteria for them that you see through A through F are the criteria that we're proposing. The second part of the amendment has to do with some of the legislative changes that have come down or were passed in June and will become effective on January 1st. And one of the provisions is that zoning ordinances have to have objective criteria for each special use permit use in the use table. So in going through and looking at, in Smithfield is better off than a lot of communities that don't have objective criteria. We have quite a few of them, and I provided you with the actual use table, and the uses that are marked special use permit that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that we do have criteria for. And you can see that the majority of them do have some kind of objective criteria. The ones highlighted, kind of grayed out, are the ones that don't have criteria. And what we're being advised by some technical assistance people that are helping communities with, updating zoning and subdivision regs, they're suggesting that we convert these special use permit uses that don't have criteria to prohibited uses on a kind of a stopgap measure while we, over the next few months, develop criteria for them or assess them whether they can be made permitted uses. But in any case, look at them and try to, figure out, some objective criteria that will pass muster. There are still others here that we're proposing to adopt some objective criteria. Those are some of the residential, I'm sorry, residential, but the retail uses. You can see that those uses are G22 retail sales under 5,000, the retail sales 5 to 40,000, and then the shopping centers over 40,000. This criteria that we're proposing is located in other places in the zoning ordinance. For some reason was not added here, and I think these would suffice in so that we can say that if we adopt these criteria, we should be all set. So those are the changes that we're looking at right now, and we were going to try and get these in place prior to January 1st, but in talking to the solicitor about it, we believe that, if we go to we can talk about this tonight and possibly for the next meeting, make a motion and a recommendation to the town council. They're likely going to schedule a hearing for January 9th, where we would adopt these and, be in a position to be in compliance with the law at that point. So
The proposed ordinance for battery energy storage facility, where was that language, where did that come from? Other municipalities, or how was that put together?
the definition is one that I saw looking at some other documents from other towns. And just looking at some of the reviews that were done. My wife happens to be a planner as well, and she's in Holliston, Massachusetts, and they're currently reviewing one. And we looked through all of the documents that were submitted there, and looking at the kind of reviews that they did, we came up with these criteria based on that.
Is it the intent of the ordinance that these battery storage facilities only be placed on non-residential zoned?
Yes. Yeah. As I said, they're going to be.
For example, as you know, we have a matter that was on last session.
Yep.
Where some of these issues are popping up, and so it's a little fresh in a lot of our minds.
Yep. Yeah.
Is it the intent to only allow these commercial size battery storage facilities in industrial zoned areas?
Yes, as I said, they're going to be prohibited everywhere except in industrial or plain corporate zones.
Maybe that could be tightened up, or I didn't read it correctly about being prohibited.
It's on the chart. It's on the chart, yeah.
Okay.
So, but I wanted, my own personal opinion is that we don't know enough about it to open up the door. I mean, we don't know what it does to the environment. We don't know how they're planning on, my understanding is that you can't really put them out as far as once they start a fire, just like a Tesla, I mean, it just has to burn out. I mean, there are so many issues, and they had agreed that they haven't had any to come online yet. So we don't even know what the ramifications are.
In Rhode Island, yeah.
Well, I thought that they said that they didn't have any at all.
Maybe this company doesn't, but they're all over the country, so.
So so, I mean, we're not allowing cannabis to come into the town. Why are we entertaining this?
I believe we have to.
Why?
Because they're like any use that you have to make allowances for them. And by limiting it to, non-residential zones, we're being as protective as we can. Well,
What's the effect, assuming the ordinance eventually is approved by the town council? We presently have a matter before us. How, if at all, is that to?
I don't know that it's going to affect that. I mean, that is already gone on its path, so it's gonna play out here. This ordinance will be after the fact.
But if the ordinance is in effect before we ultimately rule, because I don't think we ruled on that now.
I'll leave that up to the legal minds to, yeah.
Proposed boundary, which I know that's not really the agenda item.
Yeah, we can't really discuss that, so.
I'm talking generalities.
Yeah.
If there was a.
That's not an area that's not in a zoned area, I don't believe, that this would cover.
Well, this says you cannot have that type of facility unless it's in an industrial area.
Right, which I believe that particular area is not, so they would have to seek a variance, right?
Well.
If you're trying to build in an area that's not zoned.
Right.
You don't seek a variance to do so, which I think the only thing we've ever seen is not.
Yeah, I was just I was wondering what is the effect of, if at all, of an application that has been filed and is pending.
Looks like we're going after it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It seems to me that the proposed supplemental regulations provide a couple of things that we're talking about. One of them is that there be some type of comprehensive fire plan to address any issue that might arise with some type of fire problem or emergency of that nature. The last provision, F, requires the applicant to provide a quantitative analysis of the risks involved in this particular type energy storage. So that I believe that, even though we might be restricting it to a particular area, we're also putting in some safeguards that will allow for fire department to be involved, will allow for the town engineer to be involved, will allow for the planner to be involved to make sure. Yeah, but it also allows the applicant an opportunity to meet the criteria to be successful.
Joe, I just think none of us, well, I'm talking myself, I don't know anything about this stuff. Well, I mean, again, or whatever I have read is pretty negative. So that's my concern, is that,
Gas stations been going out. I mean, there's all kinds of environmental problems. Problems used to go spray DDT all over the place.
This, I can agree, this is a entirely new realm, okay? The general knowledge in the community, not only community, but the country, is that you can't put out a fire with those batteries. So how do you address that? And I think, the regulation is asking the fire marshal and the fire department to, in fact, have some type of response plan for that. So I mean, before you get to a point where you will be able to approve one of these, those plans have to be in place, and we're gonna have to review them.
Yeah, I mean, this board and the zoning board is going to be the finder of fact, and they've got to provide you with a risk assessment and the emergency response plan and all that stuff, how they're going to address all these concerns. And there's going to be multitude of experts, and the town's going to have peer review of all their reports. And, you know, whenever one of these comes in, you know, they're going to it's going to be their burden to show how they're going to address all the concerns. As with any other, you know, project, when it comes before us, they have to address them and, you know, provide expert testimony. And we have experts that we're going to hire to review their reports.
Mike, White Plain Corporate, why would you?
Well, one of our large transmission lines goes right through the Plain Corporate District, so providing them with, and there's no residential isn't allowed in the Plain Corporate Zone, so. Through the chair.
You have a question of who?
Yeah, not for him, but
For Attorney Shadone, is that appropriate?
a couple of questions, something like that. On C, it says it shall be a screened area. What is a screened, is there a definition on a screened area? Is that gonna be trees, plants?
You don't know the answer to that.
I'm looking at some legal, I'm playing the lawyer on TV here. And joining residents, how far away is the residence going to be?
Yeah, well, it depends on, you know, what the board wants for a screen. Is it going to be a fence? Is it going to be a vegetated with, you know, I mean, if you look at the solar ordinance, we have various types of screening, whether it's a natural screen with vegetation and a fence, or, you know, depending on.
I'm just thinking people that jump on.
Yeah, well, obviously they can be unsightly, so some kind of screening to, you know.
Like he's saying, tiny tweaks and things. But also in Joe's idea about, you know, F is like the slam dunk here. If they don't need F, there's no need for us to have it in the area, it can only be blah, 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 blah. So if we just have F, saying that you gotta prove that you can filter this thing out and it's safe and everything, there's no need to open up for legal being saved by putting a small area.
Yeah, with anything that comes before the zoning board or the planning board, health, safety, and welfare is the base thing. If they can't address that, how they're going to do that, then you have grounds for, yeah, right. I mean, those are the basic things you got to address.
So I'm just saying, would it be better just to have, you know, and put in, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, just because that can open up a Pandora's box.
As I said, with all these zoning things, we have to have objective criteria. We have to have a reason for saying no. You can't just say no because we don't like it. and we don't know what it's going to do. We have to have proof. They have to show, and you have to believe what they say, and they're experts. And if you don't believe they're experts, our experts say something different, then you rely on you know, that testimony.
Am I correct that as town, as the planner, you believe we're better off to protect the town having an ordinance addressing some of these issues than not having something in place? And at least there's a standard for which the zoning board, the planning board, per application can address these other issues.
The fact
is that the gist of?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is these things are going to happen, and we're going to have them. In like I said, in Massachusetts, the Attorney General has said that these are utilities. You can't say you can't have them anywhere. You have to allow them somewhere. So I mean, that's kind of, you have to allow them somewhere. You can't just say no blanket, you can't have them. Because they've said that they're integral part of, they are going to be integral part. If we're going to have solar energy, we're going to have these kinds of battery storages.
And ultimately, it's up to the town council whether to.
Right, they're
change.
Right. Yeah, and generally speaking, when we have a use that we don't want to, affect the residents, we put it in an industrial zone where, industrial type buildings are.
Mr. Chairman?
On 44?
Adult entertainment industry. We needed a place to put it.
In Smithfield.
Yes, we needed a place to put it. So where did we put it?
Right on 44.
No.
Across from the mobile station.
Industrial zone.
No, in the industrial zone. That's what we did.
And no one's ever done it.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? So Michael, this use is prohibited in all zones except industrial and planned corporate.
That's what's proposed, yeah.
And we have the objective criteria. Okay, so that seems to take care of this. It's, we're allowing it in an area that can be, we believe will be managed safely, following objective criteria. So I think this is good.
I think we're better off having something than not having something.
Yes,
And
yeah.
specifically restricting it, if at all, depending on if they meet the criteria and all that, to industrial versus residential.
And our legal beagles are going to have to decide, figure out whether this is, if the council passes it next month.
We still
then-
have to
Yeah.
view on a case-by-case basis that each particular application.
And how it affects the current conceptual plan
Yeah,
before us.
yeah, I'll leave that to other people.
Yeah.
Go on. Mr. Chairman, if I may, as an attorney who's practiced for a long, long time in the state of Rhode Island, if there is no criteria in place, okay, and the argument that's going to be made at some point in court after we all get sued is that since they didn't prohibit it in any way, any place, we're going to be able to put it wherever we want to put it. This sets a criteria for where they can go, and it gives parameters as to what they can do, number one, and number two, what criteria they have to meet in order to get it approved. And if we need to amend it later on, I know the town council will look at it, the city attorney will look at it, and if necessary, we can look at it again. But I would suggest that we put something in place that meets at least the needs of this town at this point in time.
As long as we're aware that we have, let's see, heavy industrial, no way we can do that in town. Truck terminals, no way we can do that in town. It's N right across. So we do have situations where we're not allowing stuff to happen, anywhere.
But there are criteria for those.
No, it's N straight across.
I agree with you, Rachel, and I know our chair said that as well. It's better to just have some guidance in place, and it can always be readdressed in the future, but to have no guidance, if we're all just guessing, because we're modeled, it sounds like after existing ordinances, so it's restrictive enough where I feel comfortable passing it.
The point being is, if this doesn't go in, this is more restrictive than what is currently in place.
Exactly, which is nothing.
All right, so this is more restrictive than what's in place. So if we don't do this, or don't, exactly.
We're remiss.
But that's my independent opinion. So,
Well, I think, like you said, that's the thing, that'll cooperate there.
well, each case, they have to still pass and be reviewed, and this is just setting a parameter for this, as opposed to leaving it up to the applicant or leaving it up to the board per se. It's given some guidance, and ultimately, the town council is going to say yes or no, or yes or no with an amendment, so.
We can't do outdoor movies.
What's that?
So we can't do outdoor movies. No outdoor movies in this town.
No outdoor movies.
We do them all the time in different.
Yes, yeah. Any other further questions or concerns of the board members on the proposed zoning amendments?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Moore has a question.
Oh,
It's just a couple of items in the section 1 title. I think there's a grammatical change under, let's see, amendments that change certain special use permits to uses to prohibited in all zoning. I think there's one more uses than.
All zoning districts.
To uses, prohibited uses, and I think it should be prohibited in all zoning districts, and amendments that add criteria. Is that correct?
Where are you in section 1?
Section 1 title, right at the first page.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And then on
Second uses.
then it's on the second page, section 3. Let's see, section 3, sections 4.4, supplementary use regulations. A, ingress, this is always one of my favorites.
I thought it was that one.
Ingress and egress driveways shall be located at least 150 linear feet from any corner when said property butts an intersection of 2 streets to provide adequate sight distance for both vehicles
What a horrible
and
sentence.
pedestrians, and in accordance with access management best practices. Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I've learned when looking at access management guidelines is that it's, when it's possible, allowing ingress and egress as far away from a functional intersection as possible to reduce accidents, reduce congestion. You just go down 44 and you got your examples right there. You driveways for drive-throughs running right out into 10 feet away from the intersection of Pleasant View Avenue and Sanderson Road and 44. So anyways, that's one of the things that you look at when incorporating setbacks from intersections and the functional area around them. So just a suggestion, Michael.
Okay, we can add that, certainly.
Motion to approve as amended.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Any other matters?
We've got a lot more zoning and subdivision reg changes coming up that we're going to have to address. We'll be doing them after the new year, but all the stuff that's going to pass, we're going to have to, where it conflicts with what we have in place now, we're going to have to obviously apply, comply with state law, but we will over time, adopt all the changes that we have.
So we should be looking at this over the coming weeks and what's highlighted, and that's where the changes are going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have the ones that are gray, we're going to have to add criteria, but I mean, certainly if you're looking through these and you see something that we want to beef up some of our criteria, certainly now's the time to do it. So,
Thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm going to introduce Tuesday night to the council the battery storage amendment, because as you've all said, having something is better than nothing. Right now, we have nothing. It's a very dangerous place for us to be in as a town. So that will be introduced Tuesday night, scheduled for public hearing. And we expect the public hearing to be held probably on January 9th. I think that's the meeting. And also, I mean, this is something, we wanted to get on the books as quickly as possible because we have nothing. So if you all have any suggestions going down the road as you start dealing with these things as to how we can improve it, feel free to let us know. And I'm sure the council will be. Right, yeah, those are the kinds of things. Right, but this was put together very quickly. Mike acted very quickly on that, so.
I wonder what the Code of Federal Regulations would say about this. And in the absence of something there, the Massachusetts Code of Regulations is often a pretty good source of.
I think in the absence of something, the town solicitor has determined that this is considered a public utility. And so without the regulation, it's a public utility. It can go in any zone because it's not prohibited. Of course, subject to a special use permit. And that's where restrictions could be put on at the supplemental use
Public
permit.
utility, even though a private corporation for profit.
It's a private utility. They call it a private, right? But it's still a utility.
Because there's
Well, Texas is
Right.
private. Unfortunately, our definition included, of a utility facility, included public, private corporations in that.
Well, most of the public utilities are private corporations in any event, so.
Yeah, it covered everything that they were doing. It included storage of gas, electric, anything you could think of, so they were squarely within that definition.
This summer in New York, there were 3 fires at battery facilities by New York State, and the governor had to appoint a working group now to examine all of them because they are so dangerous. They create a toxic cloud, and they can cascade. The fire can spread from one battery unit to the other. They have to sometimes evacuate residences. They had, in one of these fires, they had people having to shelter in place because of the toxic fumes. And then there are also, of course, contamination of groundwater issues as well, so.
Afraid of saying with automobiles,
Has
which
any,
were battery
Right.
powered.
Yeah, these,
Including, some of these exotic cars that have electrical power, and
Yeah,
it sank a freighter in the middle of the ocean.
yeah, because a battery is, a lot of chemicals. It's lithium, so,
They don't need that DNA.
yeah, they kind of have to let the fires just burn on these things. The firefighters will, and then they have to watch it because it can reignite. It was sitting on this for 4 days, so, yeah.
Makes one wonder, what do you do about putting a vehicle in a garage, for instance?
I would not put an electric vehicle in my garage.
Right.
I'll tell you that right
I
now.
agree with you. I know how hot my garage gets in the summer. Yes, I'm a long way from being a believer in that.
Motion to.
Yeah, let's go. So we're not
you
going
want-
to 9:30.
I mean, why should we allow them at all? I asked the town solicitor that, and he indicated that we have to, because it's a utility, we have to allow it somewhere. So that's how we came up with. Is that correct, Mike? Yeah. So that's how we came up with the, right.
And an adult bookstore is a commercial sales
Right.
operation.
Right.
We didn't have,
Even though it's a private utility, it's still a
We didn't have anything
utility.
for that.
Standards, though, Mass courts decided it was a utility, like Rhode Island is silent,
Ma-
on it, right?
Yeah, Massachusetts is way ahead on this. They've had more of these. I think we've only had 2 of these proposed in Rhode Island, plus this one.
Some town somewhere is going to deny completely, and Rhode Island's gonna have to speak on.
Right. Right.
It's utility here, but I guess go Mass is a good way to go.
Right.
We have reasons why they can't do it, I just say no.
We're not blanketly prohibiting it.
Right.
All right.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it.